welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Tiki Finlayson, your host today, and my guest today is Cary Bayless with Family Promise. Thank you for being my guest.
Yes, ma'am. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So tell me about your position there.
So I am the Development and Marketing Director for Family Promise, and I've been there for, 4 years now. Somehow.
Wow.
Time has flown by. And pretty much my role, it's a lot of different hats, but a good summation of it is it's my job to tell the story of Family Promise to Chattanooga, to let people know, hey, homelessness exists and it affects families, and to tell the story in a powerful enough way that we can garner volunteers and garner funds.
So tell us how Families Promise got started.
Yeah, so we are a part of a national organization, Family Promise, and National Family Promise started 30 years ago. And as of today, we have 202 affiliates, just like Family Promise of Greater Chattanooga, all across the U.S. We're in almost every state. So 19 years ago, it's hard to believe, but 19 years ago is when we got our roots planted here in Chattanooga, and it's been a journey ever since.
What is one of the most pressing issues with the people that you serve?
So the number one issue that we see is just a lack of safe, available, and affordable housing. So sometimes we'll have families come to us and, they're all employed and the kids are succeeding in school, but there's just a lack of housing in the city. Sometimes we'll have families come and we assist them with securing a Section 8 voucher, which is a housing voucher. And even once they have that housing voucher, it's hard to find housing.
And what are some of the reasons people become homeless?
Oh, that is definitely a very, very tricky question, but it's one we hear a lot. A lot of times people, they hear the word homeless and they think, those people, they drank all their money away, or they spent it on drugs, or, it's all their fault. But while that is a case for some individuals, for the vast majority, it's not. A lot of people, they're just living paycheck to paycheck, and disaster strikes. We see a lot of families coming to us due to foreclosure. We see a lot of families come, and they've never had to navigate the social services system before. So when they enter our door, it's a daunting task. One thing I always like to think to myself is, it would take so much selflessness to be able to swallow your pride and say, I can't provide for my family right now, and I need help. So when a family does get to that point, one thing that I like to say sets individuals like yourself or me apart is we do have a support system. So if, Lord forbid, one of us lost our jobs or fell on hard times, we could call family or we could call friends and say, hey, I can't live in my car. I can't live on the streets. Can you help me out? But a lot of the individuals who do end up homeless, they don't have that support system. So that's really what sets them apart.
And is homelessness a large issue in our community?
It is, yes, ma'am. So every year, as a part of the census, there is something called the point in time count. And that's where individuals in the community, they spend a large amount of time one day and they just canvass Chattanooga. And they visit everything from known homeless camps to, just wandering areas where they think people might be living, and they get a count of the individuals. So one number that, one number that is staggering to me is currently there are 1,700 homeless children, and that's just children in Hamilton County alone.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. So that's the reason we wake up every day, and our job is to work ourselves out of a job. It's for every man, woman, and child to be housed, to be safe, to be secure, and really to have the chance to dream again, not to live in that survival mode, but to take a breath, to breathe.
So tell me, what are some of the services that you offer these people that are seeking your assistance?
Yeah, so as we spoke about earlier, we have been around for a long time. So through our history, we've learned it's not a good idea when someone comes through our doors to say, okay, here's a job, here's a housing lead, now you're done. What we've found is a lot of times when individuals are homeless, there are educational holes that need to be filled. So some of the services we offer include life skills classes. We do everything from financial literacy, so that's everything from what is a want and what is a need and how do I put those into my budget, to parenting classes, to cooking and shopping on a budget. So that class is like, why do Cheetos make me feel like this and spinach makes me feel like that? So education is one big part that we offer the families. And as we're filling in those educational gaps, that's when we're able to really help the families, meet their basic human needs. And once those basic human needs are met, that's when we can take the next step. So the next step is securing employment or disability if they are disabled, and securing housing. So as we spoke about earlier, housing can be difficult to find, especially safe and secure housing. So that's why we offer case management. And our case manager, they are phenomenal, and they help our families get what they need.
And tell me about the IHN overnight shelter program.
Yes, ma'am. The IHN program is kind of our staple program. It's what, when people hear Family Promise, they think of. So originally, that was even the name of our nationwide program, was IHN. And the idea behind it is no matter where you are in the U.S., especially in the South, and I'd say especially here in Chattanooga, there are churches on every street corner. You can't throw a baseball without hitting one. So why not empower the body of Christ to join together to fill that call to help the less fortunate? So what we do is we help various congregations across the community. So we are interfaith. So that means we have everything from Presbyterian to Seventh-day Adventist, Jewish, Catholic. We empower the church as a whole to come together. So what that looks like is each church, currently we have 43 in our system, they choose a different week out of the calendar year, and they host our families overnight. So some people say that, that sounds cool, but what does that look like? Do they just sleep in the pews? That's not the case. We do provide beds, we provide bedding and transportation. So each day the families are picked up at our day center. That's where all those life skills classes we talked about take place. And they're transferred up to one of the various churches. Each week is a new church, and that's where they sleep. That's where they have their dinner, and that's where they get to, in my opinion, really see the body of Christ at work.
Mm-hmm. And so are there requirements for these churches that participate in the program?
Yes, ma'am. So there are two different types of churches that can participate. We have our host congregations. So host congregations are churches that have a bigger facility, a facility with perhaps empty Sunday school rooms or classrooms that they could designate overnight for a week to be the family's home. And as we know, not all churches are that big. So some churches say, I still want to get plugged in, but we can't host. How can I do that? So that is when we bring the churches in as a support congregation. So support congregations either help out financially with monetary assistance to the families in our programs, or they help provide the volunteers. So they're the hands and feet for some of the support congregations that have the space, but not necessarily the body power.
Mm-hmm. And so after these families stay overnight at the church, what's next for the families?
Yeah, so one fact that I'm pretty proud of is it takes an average of 50 days for us to transition a family from homeless to housed, employed, and hopeful. Hopeful is really important to me. So each week the family's at a different church, and then they leave the churches, come back to the day center, and it's at that day center where they really start the planning, the self-sufficiency plan, and that's where we help them find housing, employment. That's where the kids are picked up and dropped off for school. They have tutoring there. So really the next step is, after being at the church and having a good night's rest, a delicious meal, enjoying good community, is to get back to work the next day back at the day center.
Mm-hmm. And so do the churches stay involved through the process with these individuals?
Yes, ma'am, they do. So there are many ways the churches can do that. They can either do that through volunteering at the day center, so they can continue to invest in the family's life during the day, so not just overnight, or they can join us in our Going Home program. So once the families do reach that end goal of housing and employment, that's when we can transition them to permanent housing, and that's a big step. So a lot of times we'll call some of the churches and say, hey, the Smith family's moving out, and they only have one bed, but there's 5 people in the family. Would you like to assist us with move-in day? Would you like to help us acquire the necessary donations? So that's another way the churches can help.
So the day center is where the classes take place.
Yes, ma'am.
And where they are during the day.
That's right.
That's wonderful. So what is the case manager? How does that increase the success of these individuals and these families?
That's a great question. So case management, it is a best practice that we do follow. It's a national guideline. And the case manager provides the accountability that's needed for the families to follow through with the commitments that they're committing to. So a lot of times these families are in survival mode. They're living pillar to post, and when they come in and they're told, hey, you need to start thinking about housing, you need to start thinking about employment, or kids, it might be time to start getting some tutoring with your math homework. The case manager's there to walk alongside them, with them through that process, and pretty much let them know it's going to be okay.
And does the center accept volunteers? And if so, what requirements would they have?
We do. So each volunteer, we do a background check. That is the first thing, the security of all of our precious children and their families. That's our number one priority. But volunteers, they're the reason Family Promise is pretty much still around today. We truly believe if you have a passion, if you have a gift, be it you can teach a kid how to throw the perfect spiral football, or you're really passionate about math homework, whatever your skill set is, come join us. Come join alongside us and use that to help the families.
In our closing couple of minutes, tell me some personal blessings that you've had.
Oh, wow. Where to even begin? I will say one of the biggest blessings for me is just getting to interact with the families on a daily basis. So our offices, they are in the day center building. So every morning when I open up the building, I'll open the door and the families come running in off the bus, and the kids will hug my legs and say, Mr. Cary, Mr. Cary. And there's nothing more beautiful in my mind than seeing the transformation a family goes through. The day they come to us, there's usually not much hope behind their eyes. There's not that spark of life. But the day that they leave, there's that spark of hope, and there's tears of joy too. So
wow.
Watching that family transition and knowing that the local body of Christ played a huge role in that, I get to see the gospel lived out every single day.
Wow.
And that's beautiful to me.
So share with everyone how they can get in touch with you, phone number, website, whatever.
Absolutely. So we are on every social media outlet you could ever imagine. Just search Family Promise Chattanooga. Our website is Family Promise of Chattanooga. So just familypromisechattanooga.com. And our telephone number is area code 423-756-3891.
Wonderful. This has been very enjoyable and very informative. So thank you so much, Cary, for being my guest today.
Thank you. It's been great.